Now, even if you have a good linkage between environmental impact and economic impact, in order for clean tech or energy efficiency to be commercially viable, the company that makes the investment, the company that takes the risk, has to capture some of the value. It has to capture enough of the value to compensate for the investment and the risk. And there are three classic ways to capture value. You might be able to offer better integration between the various pieces of your business than other firms. You might be, and if it's difficult to integrate, then that can be hard to do, and it can be a way to capture value. You might be better at innovation. And then the question is, how do you capture the value of innovation? Do you capture it through IP, or do you capture it through speed? You need one of those. Or you could simply be the lowest cost or most efficient, which implies operating at best scale in the right place. The problem with the lowest cost or most efficient corner is there's only one place to be lowest cost and most efficient. It's kind of a relentless drive down the cost curve. And typically, one of the other two capture models will also be important, right? Do you get there by innovation, or do you get there by integrating a bundle of services and values that are hard to put together? This is going to turn out to be very important, I think, for Taiwan's future. So keep in mind these three different ways. If you think on the efficiency or cost curve, think about Taiwan's advantage versus mainland China. Taiwan is never going to dominate on efficiency and cost relative to mainland China. Taiwanese firms operating in mainland China may play that game, but Taiwan as an entity and Taiwan workers within Taiwan will not get there. Probably, you're going to do it on innovation, speed, and IP. It's much more likely to come out of a smaller, more nimble, more interconnected society. Okay. In this world of clean tech and energy efficiency, different countries have different potential advantages. Physical context matters overwhelmingly. It's very hard to have solar power unless you have a lot of sun. It's very hard to have wind power unless you have good sources and good stable wind. It's very hard to sequester carbon dioxide underground unless you have good reservoirs. And those reservoirs better be very near places where you use energy. So there are a lot of physical conditions that matter. Technology also matters, although, as we know at MIT, technology travels quite easily. So technology will tend to go to where the opportunities are, as opposed to being exploited where it's developed. The market context, the market for the products, and the regulatory and social context become overwhelmingly important. One of the issues for us in the United States is that much of clean tech is essentially replacement investment. We have to add new facilities to replace existing facilities. In rapidly growing countries, much of clean tech will be new investment. In fact, it would be better to make. If you think about the problem of, let's say, fully electric vehicles, you kind of think, how quickly is the US auto fleet going to be replaced over the next decade? Versus how quickly is the Chinese auto fleet going to be, quote, replaced over the next decade? Over the next decade, we will replace our auto fleet about once. Cars last about 10 years, and we're in replacement mode. China will grow its auto fleet 5 or 10 times. It has a much bigger market for that product, and therefore it will probably be a much better place for developing that product. Now, I'm saying all of this to position Taiwan within this clean tech and energy efficiency economy. Think about your physical context. You don't have hydrocarbons. Those are all imported. It sounds like you got some solar and some wind sources. I was told yesterday that you may have some very interesting ocean current sources, but by and large, you're dependent on energy from the outside. On the other hand, you're a relatively compact country with already very good transportation systems and the potential for even better transportation systems. Your pattern of urbanization is quite efficient, right? But you have substantial heating and cooling needs, and you have substantial cooling needs and substantial industrial uses. The regulatory and social context is really the big part that a government can change. So my view, and I believe this very strongly, I think that Taiwan could be the clean tech lead market in Asia, perhaps the clean tech lead market in the world. We tend to think of Denmark as kind of a poster child in Europe. It's probably the best on an overall basis. there's no reason why Taiwan couldn't put itself in that position. Let's think a little bit about what Taiwan has going for it. You might, first you might say, why not just continue what Taiwan has done for the last 2 decades, which has been powerfully important? For the last 2 decades, by and large, Taiwan has followed demand conditions elsewhere, has followed products that are developed and generated elsewhere, and has basically produced products for other markets. I think it's time that Taiwan define what products should be produced and actually lead on the demand side. So your opportunity, you have world-class technology, you have a world-class supply chain, and you have a very strong potential to be a lead market. Let's look at what you have. You have advanced users, relatively high income and sophisticated. You have an advanced electrical grid compared to many countries. You have limited energy sources. What I would argue all it is missing is an act of political will. I think that Taiwan tomorrow should become a fully carbon-priced economy and basically should change the prices of energy and energy-using activities to match what the rest of the world will face in 5 or 10 years. Imagine what would happen. Suddenly, you would have all kinds of opportunities for inventing new things all the way through the energy supply and use chain. Many things that we may not have even thought about, because you would simply have the market demand for those products. And there would be relative certainty about the profitability of doing those things. And you would become the test bed and laboratory for clean tech and energy efficiency in the region and perhaps the world. Yes, it would cost something. You would be raising significantly the cost of electricity. But notice, you would be charging a tax on yourselves. So you'd be charging a tax on carbon. You could use that tax to reduce value-added taxes or payroll taxes. It would have no net impact on the economy. You could do some very interesting things. It's not a trivial act, but it could be a very important act. So think of yourselves not just as players and suppliers of clean tech devices, but think of yourself as the global laboratory for developing those devices and changing consumption patterns. That would also put Taiwan on the map in a very visible way. And with the events of today, with the signing of the agreement where Taiwan will become more interdependent with the Chinese economy, so much more important for Taiwan to find ways to make itself a differentiated leader. So it seems to me this is a clear way to go. So in conclusion, if you want, I was told to say if you want to change the world, but I would say if you want to preserve the world that we know, if you want to preserve the world we know, if you want to preserve the great quality of life we have, you must address the climate problem. In order to do that, I'd say if you care about the environment, you really need to learn the language of business, because attacking the environmental issues require investing in developing businesses and products. And constantly think about what I call double bottom line business opportunities. Opportunities that are economically profitable, but also have a strong positive environmental impact. If you care about business, you think money is all that counts, well, you better learn the language of the environment, because it matters, and it's going to drive your opportunities. And again, you want to create double bottom line businesses. And the point I made about Taiwan moving to a fully carbon-priced economy is the point that policymakers must reduce the gap between the economic and environmental value propositions. And if that problem were solved in a single step, I think this would become a very exciting economy. And clean tech and energy efficiency would play much of the same role that World War II played in Lessard's story. Thank you very much.